Paris summit, the French president said Boko Haram has links with Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb AIQM. Is that information being shared by Scotland Yard or MI6 and MI5?
Well, we share intelligence information with a whole range of people. I'm not going to get into the detail of that, but there are clearly links.
Why?
Because it's intelligence, there are clearly links. There are, which I think emphasises the importance of the region being involved in finding a resolution to this issue, which is why the Cameroonians are very important in this, why the Chadians need to be involved, the Nigerians, as well as the Nigerians, the United Kingdom, the United States, the French and other multilateral organisations as well. We cannot allow terrorist organisations to destroy normal people's lives, people who want to lead a normal life, people who want to provide for their families, allow their children to go to school, allow them to develop an education and provide for themselves in the future. That cannot be allowed to...
Mr. Minister, the Nigerian army is about 6 million soldiers. But I just wonder how Boko Haram is better armed than a nation described as the oil giant of Africa. Who is financing them and who is selling them weapons? There is no country in Africa that produces weapons.
Well, there's no doubt there are significant capacity issues in the...
So which are those Western arms industries which are selling weapons to Boko Haram?
Well, certainly, as far as I'm aware, there are no companies in the United Kingdom that sell weapons to Boko Haram.
But certainly they are in certain European countries.
There are no arms manufacturers in the United Kingdom that I'm aware of that are selling weapons to Boko Haram. There is no doubt there are capacity issues in the Nigerian military, and that's one of the reasons why the United Kingdom and others had offered help to enable the Nigerian military to deal with this challenge and this threat. And that's something that we're working on, that's something that will take time to put in place.
Do you have an idea of the charity and other sources of funding where Boko Haram is getting money? Because there is one report by the US State Department which indicates that Boko Haram is basically sponsored by cartels, drug cartels from Latin America and others which are transiting across West Africa. Which are those Western charities which are sponsoring Boko Haram? There is another report which says there is an idea from Saudi Arabia.
Well, there are several ways that Boko Haram and other terrorist organisations raise funds. One is through, for example, kidnapping. The other is through trafficking of arms, trafficking of people. You're right to raise the challenge of narcotics trafficking. And certainly the Sahel region of Africa, and we saw the events that occurred in northern Mali about 18 months ago. There are definitely narcotic trafficking that is going through that part of Africa. So this is a very complex picture.
Joseph, welcome to Globewatch.
Thank you, with pleasure.
Few days from now, the next World Cup begins in the competition's most honored nation, Brazil. How will you qualify a competition yet to start?
There will be an exceptional competition in Brazil because we are back in the country where really the football is played and has been played. The Brazilian football. It is a combination of carnival and samba. It is a talent and discipline. You remember when the former, not now, the Brazilian team, they entered the field of play. It was like a military exercise when they came in.
Absolutely.
And now the football has a little bit changed. Brazil has also changed, but Brazil is now is not a country. Brazil is a continent. It's a continent of 200 million people. 200 million people. They are expecting this World Cup, but there is a lot of criticism. But it's not only because we are in Brazil. It is a criticism on every big event in the world today, especially when it comes to sports events. That whatever, it will not work. It is kind of jealousy, I would say, or envy of people. They don't like that the big events take place. And when now we go to Brazil, and I go backwards, when 7 years ago we were given this World Cup to Brazil, and the enthusiasm of the whole population at that time, And then if I read and have witnessed myself during the Confederations Cup some of these social unrest, then I say something has changed.
Welcome to Globewatch with me, Charles Ebune, and today from the headquarters of Union pour le Mouvement Populaire, the party of President Nicolas Sarkozy, here in Paris, France, former French president. I have come to meet one of the rarest politicians of the French society and a man with a global outlook. My guest is a nephew to Alfred Dreyfus, who had one of the most controversial legal cases in French history. He has served all French presidents from Charles de Gaulle to Nicolas Sarkozy and led many African countries to independence. A friend to Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and the former South African President Nelson Mandela. He dines only with the highest of society. He's equally the author of so many books, including what I have having with me, Mes Présidents, 50 ans au service de la 5e République. Are you ready to discover my guest? Olivier Sten, I would like us to end this interview with this question. You have so many information. People, we can spend the whole day talking and talking because you are a library of the world. But let us end this interview. You have served all French presidents from Charles de Gaulle to François Hollande. According to you, who has been the best French president and who has been the worst?
It is difficult to say that because the best was Charles de Gaulle for me.
And the worst?
It is difficult to say that because I think it is not my job to say that.
Okay, most of them are still alive, so it's very difficult to render that judgment.
Now we are doing the research to see if those two the medicine have that they call interaction, because nobody have used it before. So we have to continue to see if you have the interaction that they call biodisponibility of drug, because you can take the drug by oral route, and you take 2 drugs by oral route, and those drugs can traverse this and go to the blood system. So we don't know why, if we don't know exactly if we have that we call negative or positive interaction. So that we have tested about 5 or 6 antivirus here. So you can tell them if you have, I have the possibility, I want to write the Ministry of Health to tell them you have tested this medicine, and this medicine, you can use it without problem. This is what we can do. I mean, if you use the solution we have, prevention, immunostimulant, and antivirus, you can do the best of our people, I think.
Professor Bruno Eto'o, senior researcher of medicines at the Faculty of Medicines of Bernard Claude Bichat Hospital Center here in Paris, France. Thanks very much for accepting to be guest on our program.
You are welcome.
I hope you are not suffering from Ebola.
Okay, no.
So, finally, Madam Director General, I started this interview with your thoughts about you. Let me end the interview with your personal views on one important global issue, which of course affects you somehow. You come from Bulgaria, a former ex-Soviet Union republic. You know of what is going in Ukraine today. Former US presidential candidate John McCain has said, quote, Putin is rebuilding the Russian empire, end of quote. You are coming from Bulgaria. Are you in any form worried of Mr. Putin's agenda for ex-Soviet Union satellite states, including your home country, Bulgaria, and you are a good Europhile?
Let me first say that Bulgaria was an independent country. Bulgaria was not a member of the Soviet Union, but this is just to put the record straight. I do believe that what happens in Ukraine, like many other countries, of course, is a legacy of legacy of the Cold War, and it has, I would say, a very complex history behind it. I can only say that I regret it because I regret that two people, like the Russian and Ukrainian people, are in this conflict. They have a lot of common history, like many other peoples also in this part of the country. I hope that the loss of life in this part of the world was very regrettable, of course, and I have always appealed, and I think this is UNESCO's message always, that military means only and cannot solve problems. I believe in negotiations, I believe in diplomacy, I believe that even the most difficult part, unless you confront indeed unsurmountable obstacles, which I don't see here in this particular case, I hope that the final formula of stability is being found in this part of the world.
The Director General of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, Irina Bokova, thanks very much for accepting our invitation and for receiving us here in your office in Paris, France.
Thank you very much, Charles, and send my very best regards to all my friends in Cameroon.
You're welcome.
A magnificent country. I was very, very pleased to be there, very well accepted, and proud of this long history of UNESCO-Cameroon cooperation.
You're welcome, madam.
Thank you.
It's my power and his knowledge about professional wrestling together combined that makes it so successful.
What has been your most terrifying experience in your wrestling career? Which is that experience which shocked you most, which made you so much very uncomfortable since you started wrestling? If my statistics are correct, you started it at the age of 16.
I did. Well, I've seen a lot of crazy and tragic things, to be honest. You know, like I've seen many accidents.
Just give me a few.
Well, for example, you know what happened to me? I broke my neck. I broke my pelvis, my hip. I tore my hamstring, actually my thigh 3 times. Broke my ankle in Japan, in the inside. Now I got 2 ankles actually on my left leg. Split it in half. That was tragic to me. You know, like, not talking about smaller things like injured shoulder. I had 8 concussions.
And gender equality,
the term
essentially,
for the child.
No, I'm getting there.
Okay.
And this means really removing the discrimination that is in our societies, in our laws, on account of the sex of a person, whether the person is male or female. That should not determine their worth in society. But we have seen that up to now, this remains a major discriminatory factor. And UN Women is an organization that seeks to eliminate that kind of discrimination and to advocate for equal opportunity and equal chances to all, regardless of their gender, regardless of whether they're male or female. And the second thing is to make sure that women who hold the livelihoods of families of so many other people are in a position that they can carry out their work without discrimination, that they can be facilitated to do that effectively. And we seek the support not only of governments, but also of communities.
Gaston Bonglu, welcome to Globewatch.
Thank you.
On the last day of the US-Africa Summit, President Obama said, and I quote, "A new Africa is emerging." Can you sense any meaning out of that as a business?
I do believe in your introduction you said something very interesting. You said it is in the first time ever that you have such a gathering of African leadership in the United States. I think there's no better statement than just that. President Obama is showing a commitment to really enable Africa. So this is a great start, and I'm very confident that we are on our way to do something very positive.
The African market is already saturated by the presence of the Chinese, who constructed the African Union headquarters to the tune of $200 million. Chinese investments in Africa for the moment stands at $206 billion, with American trade transactions estimated at $89 billion. Is it possible to win this battle?
I do believe that you're presenting a very good issue. When you look at the U.S., what makes the U.S. strong? The first thing is leadership. The second thing is innovation. And I want to touch on those 2 points. One of the things that the U.S. is doing now with Africa, it's really to promote the next generation of leaders that is going to help drive U.S. businesses in Africa.
They were already there. They were already doing their best to secure the situation
Madam
in
Ambassador, I have some questions
Central
to ask you.
Africa.
I have some questions to ask
Today,
you. You know, Madam Ambassador.
Let me.
30 seconds, you come in. You know very well that Central African, the people of the Central African Republic have said that these weapons which are found in their country which created chaos came from France. These are people from the Central African Republic. And they have equally said that, okay, if the French don't leave, we will not have peace in our country. Why do you think that they are suspicious of you people? These are questions. I'm just simply reading what the people say.
I cannot deny what you said.
You deny their perception.
I deny the fact that weapons came from France. This is not true. And please let me come back to what I was saying.
You can.
Today, thanks to the efforts conducted by the African troops, MISCA, with the support of Sangaris, the French troops, there is a real improvement in the security situation in Central African Republic. Calm is not is not restored all over the country, but there is a great improvement, and there is now conditions to enter to the following step after stabilization of the country is reconciliation.
This is what Neil Bowe. Neil Bowe is a columnist with Russia Today and is equally a research fellow at the International Movement for Justice or Just in the World. This is what he says. It remains highly documented that members of Al-Qaeda and the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group who fought among the Libyan rebels directly received arms and logistical support from NATO bloc countries during the Libya conflict in 2011. He writes this article in a website called Globewatch, where articles are published, and it is dated April 11, 2012. Is it possible to deny that when you were fighting, when the French proposed the invasion of Libya through a no-fly zone in areas like Bani Wali, Misrata?
We must remember that Libya was a country where huge quantities of weapons were stockpiled during the Gaddafi
Where
era.
did they buy them? Because they don't produce weapons.
There were huge quantities of weapons, and Gaddafi was distributing weapons to many groups all over Africa and perhaps elsewhere. And today there is terrorism is present in Libya. There is a very chaotic situation. That's true.
Are you happy to see Libya today?
That's true. Sorry?
Are you happy to see what Libya is today?
Of course not.
Okay.
Of course not. Nobody in France regrets Gaddafi. Gaddafi was a dictator who bombed its own people.
The Vice President of Switzerland, Simonetta Sommaruga, welcome to Globewatch.
Hello and welcome.
Let me start with a question which has to do with democracy in Switzerland. You are known to be the best open, direct democracy in the world. But decisions taken in the federal 7-man government are kept a secret for 50 years before public consumption. Why such a contradiction?
Well, I think that direct democracy or democracy in our country is something which is very important. And it's so important because the population, they can participate in political decisions. They can tell when they are not happy with the government, for example. And I think one of the most important things as well with the democracy is also that we have a very strong civil society. We have critical organizations, associations, which tell when they are not happy with something. And I think democracy and the strong civil society together, this is something which is for our country really.
Personally, do you think you will be elected president of Transparency International?
That's a question which nobody standing for an election will answer a priori. We have a campaign, there are different candidates, we try and move our own ideas. We do that with the hope of being elected, like any electoral process.
You are not sure of yourself?
Of course not, of course not.
This is what David Cameron has said. We run the risk of repeating the mistakes made in Munich in 1938. We cannot know what will happen next. Is it appeasement, negotiation, or striking? Which policy is best to deal with Putin's agenda today?
I think it's better to negotiate. If you are here in Cameroon and somebody bring his military in your frontier, I don't know how you will represent yourself as a leader.
The kind of God you are talking about is the kind of God this young man is equally talking about, that he doesn't believe in his existence. And you know what? This young man happens to be a product from Sacred Heart College, Mancam, which is a Catholic school.
Yeah.
How on earth can a product of a missionary school subsequently become an atheist? What can explain such a dramatic transformation?
Yeah, I can give two reasons. The first one is that we receive Jesus, we receive God in our families. That the first training, Christian training, is from our family. So we should receive Jesus Christ through the sacrament of Christian initiations, baptism, the Holy Eucharist, and confirmation. So that's the work, the mission of a family. After that, we can go to school, and the school should continue and fulfill that work. And nowadays, we notice that some people send their children to Catholic school or confessional schools, not only necessarily for the Christian initiation or Christian training. It's just because they have good marks there, they work well, they train people well. It's not a matter of faith.
So any incursion from the Chinese side would mean American direct interference in support of Japan. Is that what you are telling me?
Well, I'm not going to answer any hypothetical questions.
The Secretary General equally calls on your team. I'm reading the last two lines of the last paragraph of his letter to you, to work in total independence, impartiality, and objectivity with the sole objective of contributing to the promotion and protection of human rights. You are going to a country where petrol is the principal source of the situation where we are today. If they give you petrol, will you turn blind to justice?
I'm not a petrol merchant, so if you give me petrol, I won't keep it where. Do I have tanks?
The International Labour Organization states that globally, 75 million youth are out of the job market, aged between 15 to 25. Thousands of children are sexually assaulted by the Catholic establishment. That is according to the United Nations again. And you have millions of others suffering across the world. When you hear such blistering figures, are you saddened, traumatized, or sickened?
I'm all those things, but I'm also so hopeful and so optimistic. And let me tell you why. For each of those figures, which are true, and they cause us great sorrow, there are figures that tell a story of achievement, of success, and of hope. Across this great continent of Africa, for example, maternal mortality is reducing.
I mean, at the level of the African Institute for Mathematical Sciences, it should be $1 million issue.
Well, let me take a step back. You're putting a number of questions into one. So, we recruit students at AIMS on the basis of academic excellence and potential, drive and commitment to Africa.
Professor Klaus von Plitzing, 1985 Nobel laureate for Physics, thanks very much for accepting our invitation on Globewatch today, and I should tell our audience that you are the first Nobel laureate to be guest on this program.
Thank you very much. It's an honor for me.
So we wish you a safe journey back to Germany.
Thank you very much.
With all these fall downs of American diplomacy, can you have the courage to tell me that when Washington sneezes, the world can still catch a cold?
Well, I think we see in crises across the world in the United States.
It's probably a yes or no question, Mr. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. Can you say confidently that if Washington sneezes today, the world can still catch a cold?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily phrase it that way.
How do you instill confidence in them when the leadership mantle is like a financial scandal?
Well, I mean, it is a number of factors. This illicit financial flows issue is very much at the top of the agenda of the African heads of state. They have created a commission to deal with it, chaired by President Becky. I'm the vice chair of that commission.
If you take Syria and the Central African Republic, you are the boss to decide where food should go most. Where will the priority be?
Charles, I am passionate wherever there's a hungry person, whether it's the Central African Republic or Syria.